We are at the forefront of many innovative and exciting things developing in the world of senior living. With Tim Mallad, CEO of Forefront Living, as our guide, this show will shine a light on how older adults can embrace these changes to live active, happy, fulfilling, and thriving lives. Through discussions with senior living and hospice professionals, architects and designers, and people of all ages, will help today's seniors envision the art of the possible and take steps toward achieving the future of their dreams. Welcome to At the Forefront.
Welcome to At the Forefront. I'm Tim Mallad, CEO of Forefront Living, and today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to all of our hearts: dining, food, nutrition, and all things good at the dinner table. Very happy today to announce that Forefront Living has entered into a new partnership with Thomas Cuisine, and very pleased that Alison Patt will be with us today, who is CEO of Thomas Cuisine, and also pleased to introduce Ke'o Velasquez, who is our corporate director of operations. So welcome to both of you. So before we begin, I ask first, Alison, tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in Idaho from Michigan and into this sector of dining.
Absolutely. Well, so happy to be here. Thank you, Tim. So I started my career out in hospitality. So I was in resorts and hotels, Four Seasons, boutique hotels, and I just fell in love with the dining experience and just what it could really bring, like you said, to the table, to the experience that our guests have. We actually moved back to Michigan after doing quite a bit of hospitality out on the West Coast, and I had an opportunity to lead at a food management company. At that point, I had no idea what food management was, but it was this great opportunity to bring everything that I loved about service, about food, and actually bring it into areas like senior living. So I was out in Michigan for many, many years. As we went through that journey out in Michigan, we actually had quite a transformative experience with our son. So my son is nonverbal and autistic, and as we went down that journey of healing and therapy, we found just amazing results through food. So as we walked that journey, I got a chance to meet this amazing company out of Boise, Idaho. I had to Google where Boise, Idaho was. But an amazing company that just believes in the power of scratch-made, real food. I had already experienced that in my own life. So 4 years ago, we packed up in the middle of COVID. We got on a plane and we moved our family to come work for Thomas Cuisine. And it's been an amazing journey.
It's a fantastic journey. And Ke'o, it's interesting. I heard probably some of the same touch points from a career standpoint. You began your career actually on the production side, and I met you when you were working for the Four Seasons as well as a restaurant. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how food came to be a focus of one of the things you do now?
For us. I've had a really very fortunate career. It's been very adventurous, and it's changed quite a bit over the years. I started with my dad in construction, actually, many, many years ago, and then got into organic farming and then found my way into the food service industry. And so when you met me, I was a chef at a little small restaurant that allowed you to do BYOB, which was a big attraction for our guests. And so we had these wonderful, amazing wines that would come in, and I got to pair food with the wines and taste all these incredible wines, which is kind of my motivation for pairing the food with the wine. And was also doing some time at Four Seasons as well, so I was kind of doing two things at once. And that's how I met Tim, because he was one of the customers that also enjoys wine, would bring his in. And through a series of, fortunate career events, I was able to become a executive director of a senior living building when Forefront reached back out to me. And so we had some conversations back and forth of what a good role would be, and we landed on a director of operations and hospitality role, which has been fantastic ever since.
I'll have to jump in. I think an interesting thing with Ke'o is he will come to the table as chef, and he'll ask what you're drinking, and he'll ask for a sample of the wine under the premise that he's going to match the perfect sauce to whatever entree you order. So I really thought he was, and I saw him go table to table. I'm like, it's a clever way to drink some really good wines. But what was interesting is he came back with a sauce that absolutely matched different entrees at the table with different wines. And, I think that ability to address preferences and that ability to customize was something that really attracted Forefront Living to Ke'o. And, we are an organization that is over 60 years. In the past, we have very much prided ourselves on being independent on the dining side. However, as we grew in Ke'o, I'm going to ask you this question first, being able to scale that, being able to do what Ke'o did on multiple campuses was something that we realized that perhaps we needed to find a partner for. Ke'o, can you talk a little bit about the multi-year journey that we were on and what we were looking for in a partner?
Yeah, I mean, we were, the campus that we have, the Presbyterian Village North Campus, has been there for over 40 years, and so it's kind of established. But as we've now gone into this growth phase with the company, and we're looking at other campuses, scaling is always a question of support and having the resources to be able to do that on multiple areas across the state and other areas. And so, when I first came on with Forefront, I looked into various companies and went through the process. And it was, do we need it? Sure, is this the right timing? Is this the right fit culturally and the right fit for us? And so, we went through the vetting process and the interviewing process, and there was a lot of discussion back and forth of what would work for what we're looking to do. Initially, we kind of stepped away from it, and then we realized that, let's look back at it again, and we stepped back into it, and I'm really glad we did.
Yeah, I think as an organization, one of the things that was very important to us was culture. And Alison, you and I had a number of opportunities because it was a long journey between our two organizations and several touch points on culture. And I thought what was very interesting in our journey was you were interviewing me as well, and you were looking at who you wanted to partner with. And I'm curious, your business is I think it's well known, but you're very selective in your clientele as well. Can you talk about what you look for in a partnership?
Absolutely. Well, I often say finding a partner is sort of akin to dating, courtship, right? And we had quite a courtship, all of us, I think, that finally we got down the aisle. But from my perspective, Thomas Cuisine also has that rich history that you all have. And so we have been around since 1986, again, founded in Idaho. And for us, unlike so many other organizations that I've worked for, we aren't on a mission to be the biggest. We actually want to be the best, and we want incredible partnerships. And like you said, part of doing that is we have to be really thoughtful about those partnerships that we enter. So you're right. I think we interviewed each other, all of us, for quite a while, over some good meals as well. But as I think about what makes a really great partner, you already said it, cultural alignment is number one. We are coming in your home. We are coming in your environment. And so we want to make sure that that's going to mesh, that's going to match. And I know we actually had an opportunity to be in each other's environments. So as we walked around, we listened to how did team members talk to one another? How did team members speak with residents? How do you talk about a partnership? I listened for things like, are you looking for a vendor or a partner?
Right.
To me, a vendor is very transactional, and there's a place for that. We're not the right vendor, but we are a partner. We want to come alongside and really build something special together. We also really took time as a team to think through, how does dining fit into your vision? How does it fit into what you all are trying to build and create? If that is an important component, if that's something that has a lot of value to you and to the residents that you serve, then we feel like there's an opportunity to really be a partner in that. And then finally, it's really, do we like doing business together? Can we all have a meal together? Are we in sync in terms of where food is going and how this partnership is going to look? And so for us, all of that aligned. Our values were so aligned. And again, that cultural piece, I so appreciated how much you took time and travel to actually make sure that was right.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting about Thomas is you certainly have a footprint in senior living, but you do other things as well. Yeah. Can you tell us about the range of things that you do?
Absolutely. So we actually started in healthcare. That was what our founder, Thad Thomas, had done most of his career. And so that was kind of a natural foray into food. Again, scratch cooking is at the core of what we do. And you'd think that's a commonplace thing, but pretty frequently we go into environments where Most of the team knows how to use scissors, not knives.
Right.
We're just unzipping bags and reheating things. We don't do that. We really do teach people how to actually cook. We want those salad dressings made from scratch, those soups made from scratch. So we found a real opportunity in healthcare to make a difference on the plate for patients, for doctors, for team members. From there, we did enter senior living. It was this beautiful opportunity to kind of take what we knew on the healthcare side, but also have a lot of fun around innovation and technology and how food is evolving. We also serve in corporate dining. So we work with amazing Fortune 500 companies, local companies who just believe that food is part of their value proposition with their own team members. So they actually recruit by having amazing food. And then finally, we also work with private independent schools.
So quite the range. Both restaurant experience. So I'll ask you both this question. Sometimes when we paint a picture of what dining is, you see the filet and the lobster tail and other things. But when you look at serving the same customer day to day, how does that differ? And I'll ask you first, Ke'o, because I met you in a restaurant. And how does that differ from when we were going out and we're going to that meal? I mean, there's certainly a place for that meal, but what does day-to-day dining look like for the people we serve? What do they really want?
It's evolving. I definitely, my time with senior living, definitely I've seen it evolve. But it's, when you go out to a restaurant, you can look forward to that special dish that you love so much. But you're going there once a month. Maybe more frequently for some, every other, couple weeks. When you're there every day, you don't want something over the top all the time. There are times you want that, and there's times you want something simple. And so, there's always this balancing act with residents and providing that upscale experience and something really simple and comfort food. They may just want peanut butter and jelly sandwich that day or a cup of soup. And so, and they don't feel like having a full 3-course meal for, that day. So it's important to have that balance available.
Across the board, we're seeing such a desire for different kinds of venues, different kinds of dining experiences, because to your point, Ke'o, sometimes you just want a sandwich. Other times you want a beautiful meal. You want to invite your family members in. So we are just finding more and more that residents are demanding those different experiential dining venues, so to say. Some of those are formal, like a bistro or like a dining room. But also having pop-up experiences and really just being able to leverage new and different to keep it fresh and keep it fun, give options.
Yeah, I have a good friend that's a very well-known chef in Texas, and he went into senior living, and it was a very steep learning curve for him.
Yes.
He's used to his regulars coming in and loving his food, and when he put those items on the menu every day, they got tired of it very quickly.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting, and I'll share with the viewers a little bit about the experience. So one of the things, we had talked a lot about culture, and I was very curious to see, I knew Thomas was not the largest organization. I knew they were a smaller organization, and I wanted to come to their corporate office. And I would say the corporate office is very much what you're seeing at this table today. It's very congenial. There's a lot of camaraderie there, very values focused. And one of the things that I wanted to see was something non-senior living that Thomas was doing, and something that was different. So I suggested that perhaps take us to some place that you're very proud of and that is a good example of yours. So in my mind, I'm thinking, gosh, they must have a 5-star restaurant in Boise they're going to take us to and show us what they're doing there. However, would you like to tell us about where you took us, and then I'll tell the viewers about our experience?
Yeah, that's right. So we had an opportunity to bring you and your team down to one of our corporate dining locations in Boise. So you're right, not a 5-star dining, although I was going to say it's pretty darn good food. I make my way down there about once every other week or so. So this is a corporate client that we've actually been partners with for decades. I don't know if we talked that all through or not. But really, again, they saw food as such a part of how they wanted to attract talent and how they wanted to take care of their people. So they allowed us to come in and really custom create a whole dining experience. And I will tell you, it is a great place to grab lunch. Team members there are so excited to come in. There's grab and go. We have different sort of restaurant stations, I guess I would say. So you can come up and get a fresh grain bowl that's made right in front of you, or a wood-fired pizza. We've got entrees of the day, but again, everything is scratch cooked. And we actually attracted most of our talent from the local restaurants. They were more excited to come in and serve this incredible group of team members than they were to be in a restaurant setting.
Yeah, it was interesting. So for the folks that are listening or viewing this, if you can imagine if you think of something akin to a cafeteria but not with stations, and there were, as Alison said, there were different stations, and I think a number of our folks had gone into one line, and of course I like to go off script, as everyone knows. I went into a different line, and there was a station, I believe they were doing something Korean, and it was a Korean-inspired dish. I'm like, well, I'll try this. We'll see, because nobody's in this line, and I'm going to test the quality. It was delicious. It was high quality, fresh. They made it in front of me. They asked if I had any different preferences, and then I came back to the table with that experience. It was wonderful. Our chief operating officer was with us, and he's from Kansas, and of course he went right for the tater tots, and I've got to say they were excellent. That being said, that choice is what attracted me to Thomas. Ke'o mentioned just a moment ago that we're seeing the preferences change. We're seeing things evolve. Can you tell us about what that journey is and what you're seeing in different organizations and in senior living in particular? I'll start with you, Alison, and Ke'o, please jump in.
So, Ke'o hit on some of it, but I do think that first and foremost, the residents that we are serving today are very cultured. They are well-traveled. They have incredible palates. Yeah. So I actually think it's an exciting place to be right now.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. So certainly variety, again, keeping it fresh, and also having just ethnic variety at the table even. Beyond that, the other thing that I'd say, even the past year or two, I have seen a much bigger emphasis across our partners on just aging well, longevity, and the role that food plays in that. So far more interest in blue zones and things like that. Like, how can we bring those things in and do it in ways that the food is still delicious, comfort, warm, everything that you want at the table, but is also propelling the health and wellness side of the community as well.
I would have to echo that. I mean, I've really seen a shift in the questions that are being asked of what our chefs are serving. It's more educated, it's more specific. There's a lot of information out there that they're viewing, on the internet, and some of it, it gets kind of muddled sometimes. But there is definitely an emphasis on well-being, and that doesn't always necessarily mean the healthiest thing. Sometimes it means I want this because I've worked hard and I had a good workout and I want to reward myself. So I want to have something that I think is going to be delicious. And I'm having this discussion not just within food, but also within fitness and exercise. You see the makeups of our fitness centers have changing. They're evolving. The free weights are becoming much more utilized, and the type of exercises and the amount of people that are in the gym that are looking at that. And that ties back to food, because they're going, what am I putting in my body to fuel these types of workouts?
That's right. I would also add chef engagement. Again, there's such a desire and an interest to know who is creating my food, to get to have exhibition cooking and, cooking demos, cooking classes. There's so much interest in that across the board, and that's been really fun for our team too, and something I don't think is going away.
Well, so two questions, and again, for both of you, I think that this idea of preferences, this idea of a kitchen table, I know we talked about a common table, but you do have different tastes and different preferences, but yet you're serving this large group of people. How do we address those?
I can speak to kind of generally, similar to a restaurant, similar to your own home. I think it comes down to, first and foremost, menu design. So we work with our culinarians to make sure that we are designing something that really is going to hit on all those different palates. You have to be so thoughtful when you think about a weekly menu or a daily special. It's not just about the unique items, but also how they fit together. Are we really hitting on the multitude of preferences that we know exist in the community? And then beyond that, I think there's so much that we can do around spices and just taking a dish and modifying it for the various tastes and preferences in the room. Finally, for us, it's all about feedback. So we solicit that like crazy. We want to know, what do you love? What's not working? Where do we have gaps in that menu that we're serving? But to me, it's keeping it fresh and interesting, and also very balanced on the menu, so that in any given night, a whole group at the table can really enjoy a meal together.
Ke'o, how are you seeing these preferences differ from community to community? Even within Dallas, we've got Presbyterian Village North that has a palette, but you're about to embark on opening the Outlook at Windhaven. What are you seeing as far as preferences?
It was interesting because we had that prospect event for Outlook at the steakhouse, and there's seared tuna on there, and there's lamb chops, and our residents were not hesitating to dive into all of these things that and there were some different flavors that you wouldn't normally see in a senior living community necessarily, and there was no hesitation. And so it's very important to keep that in mind, and I think that group is going to be different than our group over in Dallas. So it's going to be a process of feedback. How do we understand what their palate is? Because I've noticed from building to building, the ones that I've been in, there's preferences and changes in what they want, and being able to offer variety, as you talked about, and choice and selection of what they want. I do think that the outlets are going to be more critical than ever, and being able to provide a full dining experience in the different outlets. The idea when I first got into senior living, everybody just went to the dining room. There's one kind of big cattle call, and everybody went, and that's where they had their meals. And kind of setups like you have in Boise, where we went and had that amazing lunch, where there's very efficient but multiple options within that, really kind of appeals to a lot of people.
I agree. It's almost like a food hall concept. I think is really
that was the word I was looking for earlier, a food hall.
That's right. So you can have almost these micro restaurant experiences together. I think we are going to see that more and more in our communities.
Yeah, and it allows for residents to pick and choose what they want and be more social.
That's right.
What was interesting when we were in Boise, your corporate chef loves to cook. I mean, he's very happy and he's creating in the kitchen. And what I thought was really interesting is you are actually doing some different things out of that test kitchen. You're looking at different products and perhaps sourcing products a little bit differently. Can you tell us about what's going on in the test kitchen?
Absolutely. So when you were there, we actually, for the very first time, were using a brand new product that wasn't even in the market yet. So I'm so grateful that you all were willing to play a little bit in the kitchen with us. But actually, this is our very first year where we are direct sourcing with a ranch in Montana. And so we had an opportunity based on just our ownership group and partnerships that had been made over years to go up there and actually help design how this was going to take place. Grass-fed, grass-finished, no antibiotics, really working through that whole sourcing process. And so this is actually about a month ago is when we officially launched. And we now are serving central Montana beef in Montana, Utah, amazing. And Idaho. And I will tell you, it is the best beef I've ever had. So it's been a lot of fun to just play around with what were the ideal weights and how many of these animals do we want to source and how do we want to do it really well. So for us, that's kind of the next evolution of our Real Foods mission. Isn't just let's create great food in the kitchen, but let's source really great food. Let's go direct to the source because that actually benefits all that we're able to offer to our customers and our partners.
Yeah, I think it aligns very much with what Ke'o was saying because one of our organization's biggest focus is on wellness. So as you toured Presbyterian Village North, you commented on the fitness center, and what is right next to the fitness center? A cafe. Yeah. So in my mind, it's like okay, you can do the exercises and go have a brownie. But I think really it's a place to have healthy, balanced meals. I think there'll always be a place on the menu for, as Ke'o said, those comfort foods. I would ask you both, where do you see, if you talk about food halls and you talk about these concepts, where do you see things going? Is there particular examples that you'd like to see in the next 5 years? Can start with you, and Ke'o, jump in as well.
Yeah, you've kind of drawn this parallel during our conversation, but we have found that our corporate dining partners are very innovative. They're very innovative in the food selection, in how we are designing the actual restaurant outlets, but also in technology and how we're leveraging that, how we're using that. So the reason I like so much to be diversified in our portfolio is we get a chance to test and innovate and then bring it into the space of senior living.
Right.
So I actually believe a lot of what we're experiencing with our partners, much like what you saw in Boise, if you were to go to California or Utah and go into these different spaces, we have really amazing Mongolian grills where we're doing exhibition and cooking right in front of all the guests. I think so much of that really is our playground to really vet things, and then it kind of flows into senior living communities. So I think a lot of what we're seeing in that space is going to continue. I believe technology is going to change things a little bit in terms of how we interact, at least maybe ahead of time with our food. Also, again, the visual space, how we are actually building out those dining and those retail outlets. I think we're going to be taking a page from our friends in corporate.
Anything exciting you're seeing out there that you think will eventually make its way to us? Is there a trend?
You know, the biggest thing that I'm seeing, and it's not new, but I think it's being done really well, is just how we're branding those individual outlets. So again, gone are the days that it's just the dining room or the bistro, right? We're really getting these unique identities and building around that, having custom coffee blends that really go with that unique exactly. Bistro, sourcing locally, finding those really great partners who can then come in, speak with those that we're actually serving, get them excited about that new wine.
Yeah,
wine.
Exactly.
But also the beef, bringing in our ranchers, our farmers, that's really happening across the board. And I think we can do more of that.
And Ke'o, I'll ask you this because, in this role, you're very operations focused, but every once in a while, Ke'o will walk through and he's got a white coat on, and if you open the refrigerator in our corporate office, there's always something interesting going on in there. I think not so long ago, you did some demonstration cooking.
I did, yeah.
It was Hawaiian based. I believe you made poke and did some different
Very well
things.
received too.
That's what I wanted to ask you, because I think there's a social element to this, and I think you made some connections during that cooking demonstration. Do you want to talk about how important those are?
It really is, because in that setting, if I were to put poke on the menu or any one of those other items and just put it on our menu, there'd probably be a little bit of an uproar. What is this strange thing that's on the menu? But when you make it a social, and I want to say safe environment for them to try those things, there's a really strong interest in what is this, and then you can kind of pull those items kind of into the regular service and say, oh yeah, I have that at the demonstration. And so it's important that we're able to create those opportunities with the residents and allow the staff to be able to do that. And like you said earlier, you've got this amazing dining venue, and it's for the staff in the building. It's cafeteria basically. And we're seeing hotels kind of creep into the senior living market with all of their residential models. So, in a very broad, big picture sense, you're seeing the elevation of dining in multiple areas, and it's kind of all self-sustaining, pushing itself forward.
And what about on the healthcare side? We have a healthcare operation, and I think, one, if you have a passion for food, it certainly doesn't end when you transfer to a different level of care. Can you talk to us about the importance of that experience when we're in higher levels of care? And you mentioned you've worked on the acute care side, too. Yeah. Maybe we'll wrap up with that question.
Absolutely. So that really was where we started. Healthcare was our world.
Right.
And that was where we had an opportunity to be very innovative with real food in healthcare. We have a real passion at Thomas Cuisine for bringing that into senior living. I can't tell you the number of times that I will go kind of venue by venue and see different levels of care that don't have that same high quality food experience. And so I get it. It needs to look different, and we understand that. But whether it is pureed or, again, in assisted living, memory care, et cetera, there are real opportunities to do incredible food and really align across the board with that quality and those standards. I don't believe that we should be seeing the drop-off that so often we are across the industry. And we're excited to really align that more thoughtfully and put the same care, that same chef experience, and that same engagement, that service level across the board.
Yeah, and I think technology really has a strong role to play in this area because, the regulations around healthcare are very, very stringent.
That's right.
But the technology is starting to really allow you to do innovative things in a way that meets those guidelines, and you can hold food longer and you can provide fresher product without having to compromise.
That's right.
Ke'o, that's the next time you and I met in your career trajectory, you were in an environment that was basically assisted living, and I would say the dining room there was spectacular. And thoughts about what we're doing as an organization as we move forward for our healthcare residents.
It's it's one of those journeys that because it's in constant evolution. As I learn more and more about the specifics around the difference between assisted living and the levels of skilled nursing and the regulations around safety that go along with that. Even our vendors are working hard to keep up with that because things change. And so, our job and as well as Thomas Cuisine is to be able to innovate around some of those and still provide that elevated experience.
And not use the regulation as an excuse
right.
not to provide the service. Right. Well, I think that's a very challenging the government, right, is always a good way to end a podcast. So I thank you both for joining us. Very excited about our relationship, and I think this is probably the first of several more discussions we'll have with Thomas as we introduce some of the other individuals that work with them. Again, I'm Tim Mallad, CEO of Forefront Living, and thank you for joining us at the Forefront.